Good day and welcome. June 4th, 2025, President Trump has signed a new proclamation directly impacting who can enter the United States. This echoes past travel bans, but the scope and context are new. Debate is reigniting across the country and the world. This move was promised during the campaign, now it's policy. We'll break down what's changed, who's affected, and what it means for America and the world. Stick with us as we unpack the facts. Let's look at the map. Under the June 2025 proclamation, several nations now face a full ban on entry to the United States. Some countries receive total restriction. Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo Republic, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. While some countries received partial restrictions, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. The administration cites persistent security risks and lack of cooperation as reasons for this near-total shutdown. The impact is immediate, families separated, students' futures uncertain, and the American dream out of reach for many. President Trump's proclamation introduced partial restrictions for certain countries. Neither a full ban nor open doors. This means some visas like tourist or business may be suspended, while student or work visas face tougher scrutiny. Enhanced security checks, longer waits, and more denials are common. These measures complicate travel, strain diplomatic ties, and send a strong message, without a total ban. The June 2025 travel ban marks a major expansion compared to previous executive orders. More countries are now affected, with millions more people facing new U.S. entry restrictions. This wider net is both a political move and a response to evolving security concerns. Supporters see it as fulfilling campaign promises, while critics warn of discrimination and strained alliances. The global reaction is one of concern, and the diplomatic fallout will shape America's relationships for years to come. Travel bans hinge on how entry is defined and what limits are set. The order details who can enter the U.S., covering all ports, airports, land borders, and seaports. Restrictions may apply to new and existing visas, often targeting certain countries or visa types. The ban's duration is usually open-ended, reviewed periodically, and can create uncertainty for travelers. Legal challenges often focus on definitions, scope, and executive authority, issues that will shape future court battles. When the Trump administration rolls out a policy as sweeping as this new travel ban, the justification invariably begins with national security. This is the cornerstone of their argument, the primary rationale presented to the American public and the world. White House statements, and likely the text of the June 4th proclamation itself, will emphasize that this action is taken to protect the United States from individuals who may seek to do harm, to prevent the entry of foreign terrorists, and to safeguard the integrity of the nation's borders. The language is typically stark, invoking a duty to ensure the safety and security of American citizens above all other considerations. This narrative frames the ban not as a choice, but as a necessity in a dangerous world. Drilling down into the specifics, the administration will point to a range of national security threats allegedly associated with the countries now facing full or partial travel restrictions. For nations like Syria, Yemen, or Somalia, the argument often centers on the presence of active terrorist organizations, ungoverned spaces, and the inability of their governments to adequately control their own territories or vet their own populations. For a country like Iran, the justification extends to state-sponsored terrorism and hostile intelligence activities. The proclamation will likely contain language asserting that these nations serve as incubators or transit points for individuals who could pose an imminent threat if allowed to enter the U.S., making a broad restriction the only prudent course of action. The evidence or intelligence assessments underpinning these national security claims are often a point of significant debate. While the administration will assert that its decisions are based on classified information and thorough reviews by security agencies, the public is rarely privy to the full details of these assessments. This opacity leads to questions about the specificity and verifiability of the threats cited. Are these generalized concerns, or are there concrete, actionable intelligence reports linking current travel patterns from these countries to specific plots or dangers? The level of detail provided or withheld often shapes the public and legal reception of the ban, with critics demanding more transparency to substantiate such far-reaching measures. Naturally, there are strong counter-arguments regarding the efficacy and impact of travel bans on actual national security. Many experts and former security officials contend that such broad, country-based bans are a blunt instrument, potentially ineffective at stopping determined individuals who can find other routes or methods. Furthermore, critics argue these bans can be counterproductive, alienating potential allies in the fight against terrorism, fueling anti-American sentiment, and serving as a propaganda tool for extremist groups. The debate often comes down to whether the perceived security gains outweigh the diplomatic, economic, and humanitarian costs, and whether alternative, more targeted security measures could be more effective. Closely linked to the overarching national security argument is the administration's persistent focus on vetting procedures, or, the alleged lack thereof, in the targeted countries. A core component of President Trump's rhetoric on immigration has always been the promise of extreme vetting, and this new travel ban is presented as a direct consequence of certain nations failing to meet United States standards for information sharing and identity verification. The administration's position is that if a country cannot reliably vet its own citizens applying for United States visas, or refuses to share critical security information with American authorities, then the United States must, as a protective measure, restrict entry from that nation until such deficiencies are rectified. The specific vetting deficiencies highlighted by the Trump administration can vary by country, but often include a common set of concerns. These might involve inadequate passport security features, making documents easy to forge or tamper with. They could also point to a lack of robust national identity databases, or an unwillingness to share criminal records or known terrorist watch lists with United States consular and border officials. The argument is that without reliable data and cooperation from the country of origin, American officials are essentially flying blind, unable to adequately assess the risk posed by individual visa applicants. This information gap, the administration contends, creates vulnerabilities that hostile actors could exploit, thus justifying the travel restrictions. A key part of the proclamation, or accompanying policy documents, will likely outline the benchmarks these targeted countries must meet to have the travel restrictions lifted. These could include specific upgrades to their passport technology, agreements to share certain types of data with United States agencies, or allowing United States officials to conduct in-country verification checks. The clarity and achievability of these benchmarks are crucial. Are they realistic goals for the countries in question, many of which may face significant internal challenges or resource limitations? Or are they set so high as to be practically unattainable, effectively making the ban indefinite for some? The administration frames this as a pathway to compliance, but critics often see it as an insurmountable set of demands. It's also important to analyze the track record and impact of extreme vetting measures implemented during President Trump's first term, and potentially enhanced now. Did these measures demonstrably prevent individuals with hostile intent from entering the United States, beyond what standard vetting already achieved? Or did they primarily result in increased bureaucratic delays, higher visa denial rates for legitimate travelers, and significant emotional and financial costs for applicants? The debate centers on whether the proclaimed benefits of such intensified scrutiny justify the considerable resources required and the impact on ordinary individuals seeking to travel for study, work, family reunification, or tourism. The numbers on visa processing times and denial rates from these countries will be telling. One common justification for travel restrictions is visa overstays. When visitors remain in the U.S. after their visas expire, the administration often points to data showing higher overstay rates from certain countries. But critics argue that using these numbers as a reason for broad travel bans oversimplifies the issue. Overstays are violations of immigration law, but don't always mean a security threat. The real debate is whether a travel ban is the right tool for this problem. Beyond direct security threats and vetting issues, the Trump administration may also invoke the principle of reciprocity as part of its justification for the expanded travel ban. This line of reasoning suggests that if certain countries impose difficult visa requirements on United States citizens, or if they fail to cooperate with the United States on a range of diplomatic or security matters, then the United States is entitled, or even obligated, to respond with correspondingly strict measures. The America First doctrine often emphasizes a transactional approach to international relations, and a travel ban can be framed as a tool to ensure other nations treat the United States fairly or meet its demands for cooperation. This new travel ban, therefore, might not solely be about who is trying to enter the United States, but also about how the governments of the targeted countries are interacting with the United States on a broader stage. For instance, if a country is perceived as uncooperative in accepting the deportation of its own nationals, who have been ordered removed from the United States, that lack of cooperation could become a factor in its inclusion on the travel ban list. Similarly, a failure to adhere to international agreements or to support United States foreign policy objectives in key regions could play a role. The ban then becomes a form of leverage, a way to exert pressure on foreign governments to align more closely with American interests or policies. The consistency with which such reciprocity standards or cooperation metrics are applied is always a critical point of analysis. Are there countries that exhibit similar levels of non-cooperation or impose equally strict visa regimes on Americans, but are not included in the ban? The political calculus here is always a factor, and observers will look for signs that geopolitical alignments, trade relationships, or other strategic considerations might be influencing which nations are targeted and which are spared. This selective application can undermine the argument that the ban is based purely on objective criteria and can lead to accusations that it is being used as a punitive tool against disfavored regimes, rather than a consistent application of principle. Ultimately, the use of a travel ban as an instrument of broader foreign policy carries significant long-term geopolitical consequences. While it might achieve short-term leverage or satisfy domestic political demands, it can also breed deep resentment among the populations and governments of the affected countries. This can damage diplomatic ties, hinder cooperation on other critical issues like counterterrorism or trade, and potentially push targeted nations closer to United States adversaries. The strategic question is whether the benefits derived from using travel restrictions as a coercive tool outweigh the potential for long-term damage to America's global standing and its ability to build and maintain crucial international partnerships. The 2025 travel ban sparked immediate vocal pushback from human rights organizations. Groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch condemned the policy, arguing it discriminates by nationality and separates families seeking safety. Critics say it challenges fairness, morality, and international human rights standards, especially the right to asylum and non-discrimination. For many, this isn't just policy, it's a barrier to survival. The debate asks, does this reflect America's values as a beacon for the persecuted? Now let's turn to the legal minds, constitutional scholars and immigration law experts, scrutinizing the 2025 travel ban. Their focus? Does the president have this authority? Is the ban legally sound and built on a firm constitutional foundation? Legal challenges are already brewing, with experts poring over the proclamation for vulnerabilities. The courts will weigh executive power, statutory limits, and constitutional rights, decisions that could shape the policy's fate. Travel bans, even in 2025, are rarely absolute. There are always exceptions. U.S. citizens and green card holders are almost always exempt, allowed to return home. This is rooted in constitutional rights and legal ties. Diplomats and officials, too, usually get a pass so international relations can function. Sometimes those with valid visas or already in the U.S. are spared, but details vary. Always check the official text. These rules are full of nuance and exceptions. Beyond outright exemptions, the waiver process adds complexity and controversy. Most travel bans allow for waivers, letting some individuals apply for entry if they meet strict criteria, proving undue hardship, serving the national interest, and posing no security threat. But the process is highly discretionary, often slow, and criticized for being opaque. Will the new administration make waivers more transparent and fair? Or will applicants still face uncertainty and long waits? For many, it remains an uphill climb. The 2025 travel ban is a major policy with far-reaching effects. We've covered the expanded restrictions, the administration's national security justifications, and the strong criticisms from human rights advocates and legal experts. It's vital to read the full proclamation and understand the details for yourself. How do you think this policy will impact individuals, families, and America's global standing? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more in-depth analysis. Thank you for joining us.